Emma Carson stood outside the glass doors of Bennett Consulting Group, her heart pounding as she clutched her worn clipboard and her 7-year-old son's hand. It was barely 7 in the morning, and already the day felt impossible. "Remember what we talked about, Tyler?" Emma whispered, kneeling down to meet her son's eyes. "You have to be very, very quiet. Sit in the break room with your books and your tablet. Don't bother anyone. Can you do that for Mommy?" Tyler nodded solemnly, his brown eyes too serious for a child his age. "I'll be good, Mom, I promise." Emma felt her throat tighten. At 28, she'd been a single mother for 3 years. Ever since her husband had walked out, leaving her with a toddler and a mountain of debt. She'd worked her way from receptionist to junior accounts manager through sheer determination, but the struggle never got easier. Every day was a careful juggling act of childcare schedules, work demands, and the constant fear that one misstep would send everything crashing down. This morning, that fear had become reality. Her babysitter had texted at 5:30 a.m., "Family emergency, couldn't watch Tyler." Emma had called every backup option she had. Nothing, and she couldn't miss work. She was already on thin ice with her supervisor after taking time off last month when Tyler had the flu. So here she stood, breaking company policy by bringing her son to work, hoping desperately that no one would notice or care. They made it to the break room without incident. Emma set Tyler up in the corner with his backpack full of books, his tablet loaded with educational games, and a snack she'd packed. "I'll check on you every hour," she promised. "If you need anything, text me. And Tyler—" "I know, Mom, stay quiet. Don't bother anyone." Tyler gave her a small smile. "It's okay. I've got this." Emma kissed his forehead, blinking back tears, and headed to her desk. For 3 hours, everything was fine. Emma worked through her morning tasks, checking her phone periodically for any messages from Tyler. Nothing. He was being perfect, just as he'd promised. Then, at 10 o'clock, her supervisor, Linda, appeared at her desk, her face tight with disapproval. "Emma, I need to see you in my office, now." Emma's stomach dropped. She followed Linda down the hallway, her mind racing through excuses, explanations, anything that might save her job. Linda closed the office door and turned to face her, arms crossed. "Is there a child in our break room?" "Linda, I can explain. Do you have any idea how inappropriate this is? This is a professional workplace, Emma, not a daycare center." "I know, and I'm so sorry. My babysitter had an emergency, and I had no other options." Tyler is being completely quiet. He's not bothering anyone. "I promise this won't happen again." "You're right. It won't happen again," Linda interrupted coldly. "Because you're fired. Effective immediately. This is the final straw, Emma. You've been unreliable for months, calling in sick, leaving early, now bringing your child to work. We need someone we can count on." "Please," Emma said, hating the desperation in her voice. "I need this job. Tyler and I will lose our apartment. Please, Linda, I'll work extra hours. I'll take a pay cut. Just please don't fire me." "The decision is made. HR will process your termination paperwork. You have 1 hour to collect your things and leave the building." Linda's expression didn't soften. "And take your son with you." Emma walked back to her desk in a daze. Around her, colleagues whispered and glanced away. Everyone knew. Everyone had seen her humiliation. She was packing her few personal items into a box when she heard a commotion near the elevators. The CEO was on the floor, something that rarely happened. Michael Bennett, the 35-year-old founder of Bennett Consulting Group, was known for being brilliant but distant, more comfortable with spreadsheets than people. Emma ignored the murmurs of excitement. She didn't care about the CEO right now. She cared about how she was going to feed her son next week. She was heading toward the break room to get Tyler when she heard her name. "Emma Carson?" She turned to find Michael Bennett standing behind her. Up close, he was younger than she'd expected, with dark hair and sharp features softened by an expression of concern. "Yes, Mr. Bennett? I heard you were just terminated. Is that correct?" Emma felt fresh humiliation wash over her. Of course he'd heard. The CEO probably reviewed all terminations. Yes, sir. I was just collecting my son and leaving. Why were you fired? Emma swallowed hard. I brought my child to work. My babysitter had an emergency, and I had no other options. I know it was against policy, but where is your son now? In the break room. He's been quiet all morning. He hasn't bothered anyone. Show me. Confused, Emma led Michael to the break room. Tyler was exactly where she'd left him, sitting cross-legged on the floor in his blue hoodie, completely absorbed in a book about space. He looked so small, so vulnerable, and Emma felt tears threaten again. Michael stood in the doorway for a long moment, just watching Tyler. Then he did something unexpected. He walked in and sat down on the floor next to him. "What are you reading?" Michael asked. Tyler looked up, startled, then showed him the book. "It's about black holes. They're really cool. They can trap light and everything." "I know," Michael said gently. "I used to read books about space too when I was your age." Tyler's face lit up. "Really? What's your favorite planet?" "Saturn. I like the rings." Michael smiled, and Emma saw something shift in his expression, something vulnerable and human. "Can I tell you something, Tyler? When I was 7 years old, just like you, my mom used to bring me to her office sometimes." Emma's breath caught. "She was a single mom," Michael continued, his voice quiet. "She worked as a secretary at a law firm, and sometimes, when she couldn't afford a babysitter, she'd bring me to work. I'd sit in the break room just like you, with my books and my homework, trying to be invisible." Tyler's eyes were wide. "What happened?" "One day her boss found out. He fired her on the spot, said it was unprofessional, that children didn't belong in a workplace." Michael's jaw tightened at the memory. "I never forgot how that felt, watching my mom cry, knowing it was because of me, knowing that someone had decided we didn't matter enough to deserve a chance." He difference. Looked up at Emma, and she saw tears in his eyes. "I built this company because I remembered being that kid. Because I promised myself that if I ever had power, I'd use it to make sure no one had to choose between their job and their family." He stood up. "Emma, you're not fired. In fact, I'm promoting you to senior accounts manager, effective immediately, with a 20% raise." Emma stared at him, unable to process what she was hearing. What? "And furthermore," Michael continued, his voice stronger now, "I'm announcing a new company policy today. Bennett Consulting Group will be implementing an on-site childcare program for employees. Until that's up and running, any employee who has a childcare emergency is welcome to bring their child to work. We'll set up a dedicated space with supervision." He looked around the break room at the few employees who'd gathered to watch, curious about why the CEO was sitting on the floor with a child. This company was built on the principle that good people deserve good opportunities. Emma Carson is an excellent employee who's been dealing with impossible circumstances. Instead of punishing her for being human, we're going to support her. And any employee in a similar situation. Linda appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Mr. Bennett, I was just following company policy." "Then the policy was wrong," Michael said firmly. "And it's changed as of now. Linda, I'll need to speak with you in my office about how this situation was handled." He turned back to Tyler. "Tyler, your mom tells me you like space. Would you like to see my office? I have a telescope up there." Tyler looked at Emma, who nodded, still in shock. "Can I, Mom?" "Go ahead, honey." As Michael led Tyler toward the elevators, he paused and looked back at Emma. "My office. 1 hour. We'll discuss your new position and responsibilities." "And Emma, thank you." "For what?" "For reminding me why I started this company. For showing me that I'm still that kid who sat in break rooms hoping not to be seen. For giving me the chance to be better than the person who fired my mother." 1 year later, Emma stood in Bennett Consulting Group's new child care center, a bright, cheerful space on the second floor with toys, books, art supplies, and 3 full-time caregivers. Tyler was there now, playing with the children of other employees, completely at home. The program had been an immediate success. Employee retention had increased dramatically, productivity was up, and Bennett Consulting had been featured in several business magazines as an example of progressive workplace policies. But for Emma, the changes went deeper than policy. She'd been promoted twice more and now headed her own team. She'd been able to move to a better apartment. Tyler was thriving in school. And most surprisingly, she'd developed an unexpected friendship with Michael Bennett. He stopped by her office that afternoon, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Got a minute? For the man who saved my career?" "Always." Michael sat down, looking slightly nervous. "I wanted to ask you something. And please feel free to say no. This won't affect your job in any way. Okay? Would you like to have dinner with me?" "Not a business dinner. A real date." Emma felt her heart skip. "Michael, Are you sure? I come with complications. A kid, a chaotic schedule, a history of terrible choices in men." "Emma," Michael interrupted gently, "I grew up watching my mother struggle alone. I know what single parenthood looks like. I know how strong you have to be, how much you sacrifice. That's not a complication. That's courage." He paused. "I've been wanting to ask you out for months, but I didn't want to make things awkward or create any power dynamic issues. You work for me, and I never wanted you to feel pressured. But I can't stop thinking about you, about how brave you were that day, how much you love Tyler, how hard you work. You remind me of my mother in the best way possible." Emma felt tears in her eyes. Yes, I'd love to have dinner with you." "Really?" "Really." "But Michael, I need you to know Tyler comes first, always. If you're not okay with that—" "Tyler comes first," Michael agreed. "I wouldn't have it any other way." 3 years after that morning, when Emma had stood outside the building clutching her son's hand and a clipboard, afraid of losing everything, she stood in the same spot wearing a white dress, holding a bouquet of flowers. The small wedding ceremony was held in Bennett Consulting's rooftop garden. Tyler stood beside Michael as best man, beaming with pride in his little suit. And when the officiant asked if anyone objected, Tyler piped up, "I don't object. I want Michael to be my dad." The gathered employees laughed, and Michael's eyes filled with tears. After the ceremony, when Emma and Michael were having their first dance, Tyler ran up and wormed his way between them. "Group hug," he demanded, and they obliged, the 3 of them holding each other as the sun set over the city. Later, when the party was winding down, Emma found Michael standing alone by the railing, looking out at the view. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, slipping her hand into his. "I'm thinking about my mother, wishing she could see this, knowing she'd be proud." He turned to Emma. "She died when I was in college, worked herself to exhaustion trying to give me opportunities. I've spent my whole life trying to honor her sacrifice." "You have," Emma said softly. "You've created a place where people like her, like me, don't have to choose between survival and family. You've given Tyler and me a life I never dreamed was possible." "You gave me something too," Michael said. "You reminded me why all of this matters. The company, the policies, the success, it means nothing if it doesn't help real people. You and Tyler showed me that." He pulled her close. "That day I saw you being fired for bringing your son to work. I saw my mother. I saw myself. I saw every person who's ever been judged for struggling, for being human, for trying their best in impossible circumstances. And I knew I had the power to make it right. You gave me that chance." Emma kissed him gently. "We saved each other then?" "Yeah," Michael agreed, looking over to where Tyler was teaching some of the other kids a new game. "We did." The child care center that had started because of one desperate mother and one CEO who remembered being that desperate child now served over 50 families. Bennett Consulting's progressive policies had inspired other companies to follow suit, and every new parent who walked through those doors with their child, worried about being judged, found instead a community that understood. Because Michael Bennett had been that kid. He remembered what it felt like to be small and quiet in a break room, hoping not to be noticed, carrying the weight of his mother's fear that they'd lose everything. And he'd decided that no child should have to feel that way. That no parent should have to choose between their job and their family. That compassion wasn't a weakness in business. It was the foundation of true success. Emma had walked through those doors expecting to lose everything. Instead, She'd found everything she'd never dared to hope for: a career that valued her, a partner who understood her struggles, and a place where being a mother wasn't a liability, but a strength. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives become the foundation for the best. Sometimes being fired leads to being found. Sometimes the person who saves you is someone who sees themselves in your struggle and decides to be the help they once needed. Michael had been that kid. And because he remembered, because he chose compassion over policy, because he understood that real people with real struggles deserve real chances, he'd changed not just Emma's life, but the lives of countless families who came after. That's what happens when we remember where we came from. When we use our power not to judge, but to lift up. When we see ourselves in other people's pain and choose to be the person we needed when we were lost. Michael had been that kid in the break room, trying to be invisible. Now he was the man who made sure no kid had to be invisible again. And that made all the